Good morning. My name is Red Moon Eagle and you're watching Daily Devotional with Red Moon Eagle. This is a banked video, which means I have no idea what day this is going to go live. So I don't know what tide we're in. I don't know what the date is. I do recommend you hit the like, subscribe button, and there is a little drop down where you can hit an alarm, and it will let you know, it will notify you when I go live. And I go to live most days, Monday through Friday. Obviously, I bank quite a few so that just in case I'm traveling or something happens, or fairly recently I had strep throat, so I was unable to go live. I would love for you to join us every day, or at least make it part of your daily routine. Go back through. There's more than a year's worth of videos that I have saved that are available to you to go back and look at. And if one doesn't resonate, find one that does. I talk about a lot of things. Right now, what we're doing is we're following oracle cards to guide the themes or the discussions. So I'm not picking themes in advance. I used to do that. Now I'm not doing that. So today's cards are, we're going to start with 53 in the Sacred Self-Care Oracle. And this is 53, use your hands. The mantra is, I create magic with my hands. Reconnect with the magic that comes from creating with your hands. Sign up for pottery, woodworking, glass blowing, or anything that piques your curiosity, and reminds you how empowering it can be to create your reality with your own two hands. Journal prompt, when is the last time you crafted something with your hands, and how did it make you feel? We're going to talk more about that here in a minute. Okay, in our Animal Spirit Guidebook, the card that came up was Panther. Annihilation of the unnecessary, purging. The panther won't stand to see your growth or energy stagnate. Instead, it pounces into your lives and causes all kinds of havoc, with the ultimate intention of bringing us toward more fulfilling lives. It is unexpected, uncomfortable, and sometimes feels devastating. But after all the dust clears, it's easy to see the panther's wisdom at work. We've all been through these experiences. They've made us better people. Trust that the panther's journey always leads to a brighter place. When in balance, brave and productive. When out of balance, self-destructive. To bring into balance, get rid of the unnecessary. Okay, we're going to talk about more of that in a minute. Mystic Shaman Oracle. And the card in this one is the Sorcerer, number 48. The essence of this card is the source of dark power. The Sorcerer represents the destructive aspect of the human psyche and the self-centered behavior that harms others. It symbolizes the unconscious beliefs and ideas that foster separation, conflict, and scarcity. The invitation of the Sorcerer card is to enter your circle, that you are being called to look at how your beliefs around scarcity and self-centered fear manifest in your world. Examine the destructive part of your psyche that misuses power or harbors feelings of resentment, vengeance, lust, greed, bigotry, or hatred. Perhaps you've harmed someone because of the dark tendencies. If so, not all is lost. You have only forgotten that all beings are interconnected and the universe is abundant. The Sorcerer arrives to challenge you to change your thinking. You're being given a second chance to correct your course and practice not blaming others for the darkness that lives inside you. Make peace with it and choose another way. The medicine of this card is about having feelings of being out of sorts because you're faced with your own character flaw, your own pain, your own fear, your own shame, disappointment. And the pain that you inflict on others when you're out of alignment. Radical self-acceptance is called for. You must reconcile these darker aspects of your nature so you don't behave irresponsibly and cause more harm to yourself and the ones you love. It's time to come out of denial and accept the responsibility for your words and deeds. When you meet the energy of the Sorcerer with humility, this destructive power transforms into grace, which you can use in service to the highest good. Perhaps it's time to make amends. Do it. It will set you free from the shadows and help you step into the light. Okay. There's a lot in today's cards. So I'm going to go back to working with your hands. Of course, when I look at this, because I'm energy sensitive, the first thing I go to is, well, of course, we're talking about transmutation of energy. Energy sensitives transmute. They create to transmute the energy that they're sucking in into their energy bubble all the time. It doesn't mean they're energy vampires. That's a totally different thing. But they are constantly needing to transmute the energy around them into something. Many energy sensitives go through these deep, deep places where they don't realize that their sleep disturbance, their gut disturbance, their itchiness, their restlessness is all about needing to transmute. I call myself like a chronic artist. I'm not even very good in the sense compared to like Michelangelo. I can't draw like Michelangelo, but I am constantly creating. I'm constantly producing art because there's a transmutation process that has to take place for me to keep that energy moving. Ironically, when I do a lot of healings and a lot of energy work, I don't do as much transmutation because I'm already transmuting through that process. Working through your hands though, whether you have energy sensitivity, empathy, earth sense, it doesn't matter what the gifts are. Don't think that you have to be able to draw more than a stick figure, right? Like creation is part of the human experience. We all have this ability to tap into a creative force around us because we are integrally connected to Creator. And indigenous cultures around the world know this. Everyone's encouraged to create something. You're creating a spear, you're creating a new hairstyle, you're making fabric, you're making candles, you're cooking, you're butchering, you're doing all these things. We don't have as much outlet for using our hands and transmuting that energy as our ancestors did. Or let me rephrase that. We have more than enough opportunity, we just don't do it. And then the animal card for today is Panther. And Panther is annihilating the unnecessary, pushing the stuff out that has no business in your world. And what I like to look at with Panther in this, especially this, is throw out the paradigms of shame, the paradigms of perfection, the paradigms of fear. I'm not going to be a good artist. I can't do that. I'm not going to be any good. Whatever that is, whatever that block is for that creative flow, allow Panther to annihilate that. Throw it out. Throw out those perceptions that don't belong in your world, that keep you from doing the things that you want to do, which leads us to the sorcerer. Sorcerer energy is very much about recognizing the balance of light and shadow. And I'm working on trying to find other words for the word shadow, because shadow can be very triggery for people. It's like, oh, I don't want to deal with the negativity. I'm going to only be positive. Okay, well, you're swinging so far in one direction, you're completely ignoring the other lessons. And unfortunately, this is also where the Christian paradigm, and we see it, we're seeing it right now in our culture, we're seeing it right now in our politics, we're seeing it right now in these pushes for my religion is the only religion. We're seeing it in religious wars. We're seeing it in I am this belief and you're wrong, or my belief tells me I'm allowed to kill you, or my belief tells me I'm allowed to have rights over your body and your decisions, and my way is the only way. That is a huge shadow. And Panther energy says, okay, we gotta bubble this all up and pop it like a pimple. We've got to destroy the paradigms that keep us separated and keep us in isolation and keep us in that place where we are perpetrating racism, shaming, keeping people in fear, keeping people in this place of this cycle where they are right and everybody else is wrong, and keeping people afraid to control them. Fear doesn't control people. Fear breaks us down, and fear keeps us from helping each other, loving each other, building each other up, and helping us all maximize our potentials. Fear doesn't control you. Fear destroys you. And it is the shadow of self-destruction. And the Sorcerer card is very much about, like the Panther card, and this little innocuous, use your hands. Wow, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who I tell them, like, you have energy sensitivity. Yes, you have some of these other gifts, but you have energy sensitivity. You need to be transmuting. Maybe you don't have to transmute as much as I do because I have a lot of energy sensitivity. So I'm constantly branching out. But you still need to create. And they go, oh, I can't draw. Okay. There's this wonderful book called Drawing by the Left Hand of the Brain. It's amazing. I love it. You can learn. It's a skill. There are things within creativity that are skills that can be taught to anyone. And through those skills, you can create something that is original. There are people, of course, there are people that are 3, 4, 5 years old that they can out the gate draw like Michelangelo. Great. That's a gift. They inherently have the skill somehow, but they might be missing the skill of being able to do math and balance their checkbook. They might not have the skill of being able to make something come out of their kitchen, which is edible. There are skills you learn, and there are gifts that you have. An energy sensitive naturally has a lot of energy. And the skill of transmuting the energy can be somewhat natural. They're naturally able to take all the energy that comes in, and they have to create, they have to exude that in some way. Healers go in the direction of healing. People who are writing go in the direction of writing. There are energy sensitives that can do things in companies and make big things change. But in that act, they are transmuting. And as long as the pieces are constantly moving and new things are happening, that's working. But if it's not working, that energy gets stagnated and it builds up in the body and it causes a lot of body problems. But in the mind, I can't tell you how many times, this is where I was going with this, like when I say be creative, people resist their fear and their shadow and their resistance and their perspective, what the outside world is going to tell them that they can't do that thing, is going to kick in. I can't tell you how destructive that paradigm is to your psyche and to your ability to grow in this world. The shadow is not a big scary monster under the bed. Your fears that cause you to have these attachments to, well, I have to do it this way. If I'm going to draw, it has to look like Michelangelo stuff. That is a perception that doesn't belong in the world. Draw. Do it awful. Do it truly awful, and embrace the awful suck. And then practice. Find where somebody is teaching the skill. If you want to do pottery, go to a place that's got a wheel. Practice. Have somebody teach you how to throw the clay onto the wheel and center it. Have somebody show you. I was really awful in college with pottery. I can get to be about this big and then it all falls. The skill of making the big pots, I don't have that skill. But I can take a lump of clay and I can make a sculpture. I'm very good at that. And I embraced that part. I got to the part where I can center the clay and I can make a whole bunch of little tiny things. I embraced that. I was not so good at the big stuff. That's okay. It's a skill that I enjoyed and I practiced. I'm better at some things and not at others. I am a constant creator. I'm constantly learning new things. I'm embracing the suck of trying a new stitch when I embroider or a new pattern when I make a piece of clothing. I'm constantly embracing things. And that helps me work through my shadow and embracing the changes and the conflict that come with the new thing, because I'm stretching. I'm taking new information in and I'm going, how do I make this into another thing? Most of my art is symbolic, abstract symbolism. The painting behind here, this is painting and beadwork on canvas, and it's oil and acrylic, and nobody mixes oil and acrylic because they don't go together, right? Well, I did it anyway. The juxtaposition of what these are the tools you use to make a thing, and I learn those skills until I have them where I think, okay, I've got this, and then I throw another thing in it. I create chaos on purpose to stretch the expectation and open the doorway to new possibilities. And I'm not afraid of it, because I said something to somebody the other day. I was like, I've never met an entity that terrified me. I never met someone in a meat suit that was truly evil. I've never been to a place that was truly what people think of as evil. Now, I have encountered entities that my little sixth sense says, you're going to stay away from that one. They are dangerous. That could harm you. That person could harm you. I have been in circumstances that I was truly terrified and afraid, but not because the entity was evil, but because their behaviors and their own shadow had caused them to make decisions that could harm me or harm my family. The entity themselves were not evil, what people think of as evil or bad. Yes, people do bad things. And people are traumatized and damaged as young children through people harming them and not nurturing them. We don't have communities like we did hundreds of years ago where children were the primary focus of nurtured and held in sacredness. And yeah, we're not talking about European, because they've always done things a little bit weird and damaged generations and generations and generations of damage. That's a whole different thing. But I'll talk about indigenous culture. Indigenous culture honored their children, and their child rearing made very healthy adults for the most part. It wasn't until Western culture came in and screwed everything up, brought this huge fear paradigm in that reinforced and made this whole good and evil thing. Doesn't mean people don't do things that are bad. If you go out and kill 10 people, that's a bad thing. Don't do that. Are they evil? Are they inherently evil? I question that. Maybe they are. I've just not met one yet. But maybe their behaviors come from a place of shadow and damage and fear, and they are living in their own fear paradigm. And what about the people who can't connect emotionally to others because they're maybe energy sensitivity instead of empathic, and instead of being honored for the emotions they did have, they were judged and castigated and broken down? And I mean, cults do this all the time. They take your inner fears and they break you down and rebuild you into a nice little submissive cult follower. That's what cults do. They reinforce fear. And when you create, when you're using creative energy all the time, when you're allowing yourself to learn a skill to be creative, you start working through the shadow. It's really interesting. If you look at like Salvador Dali, if you look at Pablo Picasso, if you look at Michelangelo, if you look at some of these great artists, I use this word loosely, great artists, because there are many great artists that have never been discovered. And they work through the shadow in their work. They're constantly asking questions. What am I looking at? What are these people's behaviors? Why are they doing the things that they do? I'm going to paint it, I'm going to draw it, and I'm going to bring that image forward, and I'm going to make somebody see the shadow. Oh, this beautiful sculpture of this amazing, perfect form. Oh, I see this naked person. They have rolls in their belly and they're padded, or they're, what is beauty? It makes you look at beauty and makes you recognize you have a perfect human body. You were given a perfect human body when you were born. It's perfect, no matter how it is. The heart might not work great. You might have long hair, you might have short hair. You might not have any hair. Your eyes might not work right. You might have something where you can't feel your fingertips. You might have where your gut doesn't work very well. Doesn't matter. The spirit within is perfect, and the body you were given is completely matched up with your purpose. Now, that leads me to a whole other sideline, and I know people's internal dialogue is going to kick up, but we're not going there. I'm talking about shadow and creation, and that panther energy that stomps into the middle of that creative process and says, hey, you could do it differently. Try this. Experiment with this. Stretch with this. And stretch your mind at the same time. I've worked on a lot of projects. This project right here, the one that's always in the background for daily devotions, I have known since I was a little kid about Earth Sense, this gift of Earth Sense, this connection to Mother Earth and her consciousness, this knowing that she herself she's an alive, sentient entity. To everyone else, we're living on a rock. And that's okay. But she herself is an alive, sentient entity. And we live within her ecosystem. And I had been fascinated by early sculptures that had been found in archaeology in Europe. And the Venus of Willendorf was one of my favorites. I was like, I just love it. I love the richness of the texture and the different kinds of... Venus of Willendorf is one sculpture, but there are thousands of these that have been found all over. And I decided that what's a way to take that symbolism of the goddess, the mother figure, that so far women, biologically women, are the only ones who can carry children and grow a whole nother meat suit in their womb, so far. And I thought, what an amazing image to take this baby with a halo that you see in all these religious iconography, and take this baby and put her in the arms of a Venus of Willendorf. And how amazing would it be to throw that imagery out into the world and say, Mother Earth holds us within her ecosystem, holds us with sacredness, and we have this honored body that she's given us for life to live, for whatever our blueprint is, and she nurtures us through her water, her food, heat, all the things that she gives us in our world to take care of us. How amazing would that image be to be out in the world? And that's where that came from. And to do that painting, to do this piece of art, I had to look at a lot of religious iconography, to find images that I could decide kind of where I was going to go with the halo image. How was I going to do that in my painting? I did lots of drawings. And that helped me face some of my own shadow. Every piece of artwork that I do helps me work through a piece of my own shadow, a piece of my genetic DNA trauma from generations past that bubble up. Helps me work on that. So creativity can help you work through your shadow. And if you let it can transform, create that transformative panther energy into and infuse that creative essence to grow. And that shadow is no longer the big nasty monster under the bed that you can't face. Because if you face it a little bit at a time with a little bit of creativity, with a little bit of making something new, transforming that fear from something scary to something beautiful, you will feel better mental health, better connection with other people, and less smearing your own fear over everybody else. I spend a lot of time when I talk to clients untangling their fear paradigms. Those fear paradigms are not constructive. And I've had clients over the years that are like, oh, well, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And I went, well, I do this. And they're like, oh, that's really simple. Why don't you do this, this, and this, and this? And I'm like, because all of that is based in fear. If you can show me the science, if you can show me that's a real thing to worry about, I might worry about that. Otherwise, I'm going to probably keep not worrying about that. And when it feels right, it feels right. And it doesn't feel fear-based. It's not a fear-based thing. It's a right thing at the right moment. There's no fear involved in it. Fear is a big, heavy, nasty monster that lives under the bed for a lot of people in their mind and a lot of different things. And creativity is a big fear that keeps people away from being creative and exploring that creativity. I don't worry about creating. I mean, every time I look at this painting, I go, man, I could really have done that arm better with that kiddo. You know, like the baby that's got his hand over. I'm like, I could have done that better. The shading's kind of sucky. The shape's kind of weird. The baby's legs are kind of weird. I was in a hurry when I did that part. Kind of sucks. Am I going to go back and fix it? Probably not. Because I don't care that much. Why? Because I'm not afraid of somebody looking at that and going, oh, shape's kind of weird. Shadowing's kind of off on it. That could have been better. I thought you were an artist. You can say that to me all day long. Because that's your judgment. The symbolism, the things that I worked on really hard with this, I played with mediums. I played with beads on canvas. I was exploring. And I was exploring the imagery and the ideas. The ideas and the imagery are what mattered. The execution, I know how to shade, I know how to draw, I know how to do it where it looks lifelike, but I wasn't worried about that this time. This time I was exploring other things. So the things that didn't matter weren't the things I spent time on. I was exploring. I'm not worried about somebody else's judgment, fear, racism, bigotry, their inability to deal with the concept of Mother Earth holding humanity. I'm not worried about their shadow. I was working through mine. And mine said, you healed that. You were able to move on. You were able to explore that idea and get it out there. And you overcame the shadow. Creativity is important, and we all have it. I don't care how uncreative you think you are. You are all creative. You all have the ability to be creative and explore your shadow through creating new things. We all have it. Some people have it more naturally, I get that, and some people don't. But we can all gain skills to become better and explore that creativity and that idea. Have a beautiful day, my friends, and I will see you in prayer. Blessed be.